The New York Islanders go out and trade for a defenseman after all the injuries that hit this team. But is this a good move or a move done out of desperation? We'll talk about that and what it means for the franchise coming up next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. We have got a lot to talk about on today's show. The Islanders making some roster moves, including a trade, and we will talk more about that right now. The Islanders acquiring Scott Perunovich, a defenseman from the St. Louis Blues, in exchange for a conditional fifth-round pick in 2026. Now, before they make the Perunovich trade, the Islanders place Ryan Pulock and Marcus Hogberg on injured reserve, and they call up goalie Jakub Skarek from Bridgeport to serve as the backup to Ilya Sorokin. So, obviously, the injury to Ryan Pulock is enough that not only did Lou Lamoriello put him on IR, but realized that, hey, Pulock is going to be out long enough that I need to find another player who is going to fill in. And the player that he chose, Scott Perunovich, a 5'10", 175-pound defenseman native of Hibbing, Minnesota, won the Hobey Baker Award as college hockey's best player at the University of Minnesota Duluth, played 3 seasons there. He won the award in 2020 when he had 6 goals and 40 points in just 34 games. Since then, though, he has played in 97 games for the Blues, 2 goals, 29 points, 26 penalty minutes, add 4 assists in 7 playoff games, all of those coming in 2022. And that's what you've got with Scott Perunovich. Now, here's the thing. Perunovich, skilled but undersized, was not playing much in St. Louis. Had only played in 24 of the Blues games, was originally on the third defensive pair, and now he has sort of dropped below that. So clearly the Blues not thrilled with what Perunovich is giving them. Now, Perunovich is also a left-handed shot, so we have to sort of take that into consideration. Why? Well, here is the deal. Ryan Pulock, a right-handed shot, he is unavailable, and so now you've got Noah Dobson, Scott Mayfield, and Tony DeAngelo, who are all right-handed shots, and you got Perunovich, Pulock, and Romanov, who are left-handed shots. Isaiah George, Tony DeAngelo, Dennis Cholowski. DeAngelo, right-handed shot, George and Cholowski, left-handed shots. But clearly, what do we know about this move? Well, first, let's talk a little bit more about Perunovich. He does add some offensive skill, especially at the college level, as I mentioned, when he won the Hobey Baker in 2020, 40 points in 34 games, a playmaker. Has it translated to the NHL? Not so much. at this point. And he is undersized at 5'10", a buck 75. He, hasn't really shown that he is a quality NHL player. So you look at what he's done. First of all, he's averaged only 14 minutes and 37 seconds of ice time in the 24 games he played this year. In the other 2 seasons he played for the Blues, it was a little over 15 minutes per game, not 15 and a half. So, he's playing 45 seconds to a minute less this year than he did in his previous 2 seasons with the Blues. He can contribute on the power play. He scored 9 power play goals in his first 2 seasons. No power play time this year. Only 9 shots on goal in the 24 games that he played. 2 of them went in, so that's very good. 26 shots attempted. And he's blocked 21 shots, only has 9 hits in those 24 games, 4 takeaways, but 18 giveaways. So, look, there are a lot of ways to look at this trade. The Islanders did not give up a lot. You're talking about parting ways with a 2026 fifth-round pick, a conditional 2026 fifth-round pick. So obviously, if Perunovich doesn't play well or doesn't play enough or doesn't meet whatever the criteria are, they may not have to even give up that much. But let's assume you're trading away that pick. Here is a guy who could not really stay in the lineup in St. Louis. Maybe a change of scenery benefits him. But what does this say about where the Islanders are at and where Lou Lamoriello is at right now? Well, here's what it says. First of all, it tells you that Lou Lamoriello does not have, and maybe Patrick Roy as well, but certainly the Islanders organization. Dennis Cholowski, obviously they're not comfortable with him being a regular defenseman over the long haul. And I think that goes even more if you go down into into Bridgeport, because there are players at Bridgeport that they could have called up without giving up the 5th round pick in 2026. So, you could have gone with Grant Hutton. You could have called up Samuel Bolduc. You could have done, a few different things without having to trade away a player. So it tells us that Ryan Pulock is going to miss a significant amount of time, even though he is, on IR and they haven't ruled him out of anything for the rest of the season yet. But obviously you don't make this trade if you're talking about a week or 10 days. You're talking about a longer term injury. Second of all, clearly the organization doesn't have faith in their organizational depth, that the available defensemen in Bridgeport are, in their minds, not suitable to fill in on a long-term basis. And then perhaps the bigger thing that it shows is that right now, with the Islanders in 7th place in the Metro and, still on the outside looking in as far as a playoff berth is concerned, Lou Lamoriello is still all in on trying to get this team to leapfrog the 6 teams they need to leapfrog and squeeze into the playoffs this year. And we'll see, if he's able to do that. But again, we've talked a lot on this show, everydayers know, about getting younger, faster, and more skilled. Well, Perunovich makes you a little younger. He makes you a little more skilled. We'll see what his speed looks like. But here's the bottom line. Lou is clearly all in. And I don't think still that is the right move. I think that even if the unlikely occurs and the Islanders pass the 6 teams they need to pass and manage to make the playoffs, the way this team is built, they're not likely to win a round. And if they do win a round, that's probably it. Again, I do not consider this team, even when healthy, the way they're currently constructed, to be a legitimate cup contender. In fact, I don't think they're a top 10 team in this league. I don't even know if they're a top 14 team in this league when everybody's healthy and playing at their best. At most, that would be about where they would be. They are essentially a fringe playoff team. And if Lou Lamoriello is spending draft capital, granted, a conditional 5th in 2026 is not the end all and be all, but it speaks volumes about his mindset right now. He's all in. He's going for it. He is putting more chips on the table to try to win now and get into the playoffs against all odds, and then hope that you go on a run after that while this team gets older and while this team continues to be stuck in the muddy middle. So does this move indicate that Lou would probably not trade Brock Nelson or Kyle Palmieri or any of the other players on this roster right now? That maybe he would look to re-sign them rather than trade them? Again, I don't think that's the right move. Yes, this team is playing better as of late, and it's great to see. But we've seen this team go on runs at various times over the years, and while those runs are welcomed and enjoyable and all of that, it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense right now for the long-term health of this team. Because as of right now, the Islanders are 6 points behind the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Columbus Blue Jackets in the race for that last playoff spot. But they also have to pass the Flyers, the Red Wings, the Rangers, the Canadiens, the Blue Jackets, and then Tampa Bay. You could throw Boston in there. Boston 1 point ahead of Tampa Bay, and the Lightning have 3 games in hand. Pittsburgh's only 1 point behind the Islanders, but the Islanders have 3 games in hand. But still, if Tampa Bay right now plays .500 hockey over the last 34 games, so they get another 34 points, that would give them 89 points for the season. The Islanders would need 40 points to tie them. And again, 40 points in 34 games, that would be to tie them. And they have to make sure that none of the other teams we mentioned have a better stretch than that. It's not going to be easy. The odds are against it. And again, even if the Islanders make the playoffs, how long would they stay in? I don't think this is a very difficult move. I don't think it's a bad move in and of itself. But I think what it says about Lou Lamoriello's thought process right now has me very concerned. All right, more to get to on today's show. The NHL just released the quarter century team for all 32 NHL clubs. We're going to talk a little bit about the Islanders team and whether or not they got it right. Shout out to Paul, who asked a question about this. Plus, we'll preview tonight's game against the Avalanche. We'll have that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you could place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. So, thank you to Paul for suggesting that we talk about this. And it was something on my radar, but the Islanders, between signing D'Angelo and having all these games and all the things that have been going on, I was kind of holding back. But it is definitely something we wanted to talk about, and that is the quarter century team. So NHL.com releasing that, and here is who they picked for the New York Islanders. 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, 1 goalie. They did a first team and a second team. The first team, Brock Nelson, Josh Bailey, and John Tavares as the forwards. Nick Leddy and Adam Pelech as the defenseman. Ilya Sorokin, no surprise there, as the goalie. For the second team, Matthew Barzal, Anders Lee, Franz Nielsen, those are the forwards. Kenny Janssen, Ryan Pulock as the defenseman, Semyon Varlamov as the goalie. Look, I can't argue too much with this list, but I do think that there are a couple of guys I would change. Let's start with this. I would put Rick DiPietro over Semyon Varlamov. And I love Varley. But I think if you look back over the whole time from 2000 to today, the whole 25 years, DP went to an all-star game. He certainly, before his injury, was playing at a very high level. I would give him, I think there's recency bias here. And that's why we see more guys who are on the team now than guys who are playing in the early 2000s. So I would go with Rick DiPietro over Semyon Varlamov. Not by a lot. And I can't say, oh yeah, picking Varley, that's ridiculous. No, it's not. But I would think Rick DiPietro would slightly edge out Varley. And then, I'm a big Franz Nielsen fan. To me, Nielsen did so many things for this team. He was on the second power play unit. He could kill penalties. He was a great third line, two-way center. And in shootouts, he was outstanding. But where do you put Kyle Okposo on this list? To me, Kyle Okposo's got to be in there somewhere. And yeah, I know there are going to be some fans who are going to say, oh yeah, John Tavares doesn't belong on here because of the way that he left the Islanders. And look, there are hard feelings. I get that. Totally get that. But to me, John Tavares, first overall pick in the draft, multiple-time All-Star, captain, led the Islanders to their first playoff series win in more than a decade. I just can't leave him off the team. Emotionally, I understand the desire to leave him off the team. But realistically, I think he's got to be there. So I would find a place for Kyle Okposo. I would put Rick DiPietro in there over Semyon Varlamov. And other than that, I really don't have a problem with the players that were picked for this team. So, again, love to hear your thoughts. Is there somebody on here that you think deserved to be on here and was omitted? Somebody who's on this team who you don't believe deserves to be on this team? Again, it's only what these people did during their time in between 2000 and today. 7 seasons for Nick Leddy. I totally get him being on this team. It's tough. It's tough to see, who you think should be on there. And you're going back over 25 years of statistics and emotions and moments and, big wins and heartbreaking losses. But I would have put Kyle Oposo on there, and I would have put Rick DiPietro on there. Other than that, I have no problem with the choices that NHL.com and their writers over there made. What do you think? We're going to put up a poll question and ask who you think was snubbed by the all-quarter century team for the New York Islanders. So check that out on our YouTube page. All right. More to get to on today's show. We have our Islanders birthday of the day, a defenseman who played with the Rangers in the days of the original 6 and joined the Islanders for their first season in the league. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got that plus a full preview of tonight's game against the Avalanche as the Islanders close out their homestand. All that and more still coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from our hosts, Steele and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Islanders Avalanche, as the Islanders close out their 7-game homestand. They are 4-2 so far. Now, remember, we said 10 points was what the Islanders needed at the beginning of this homestand. They lost the first 2. They've won 4 in a row since then. And they're facing now, to close out the homestand, the Colorado Avalanche. First of all, this is an ESPN Plus game. So make sure, if you want to watch it, not to look for MSG Network coverage. Second of all, this game, you're catching the Colorado Avalanche at a very interesting time. They just, over the weekend, traded Mikko Rantanen, one of the best players in the league, to the Carolina Hurricanes. We saw Rantanen make his Hurricanes debut Saturday. And this is a team now in transition. So they got in the deal Jack Drury and Martin Necas, who have played a couple of games now for the Avs. And the Avs ended a 3-game losing streak by beating the Rangers 5-4 on Sunday. Right now, they're 5th in the league in goals scored, but 25th in goals against. The power play is only 19th in the league. The penalty kill, 14th. Overall, they're 29-20-2. That places them right now in 4th place in the Central Division. And, they are right now, if the season ended, they would be a wild card team. But, again, we're probably catching them at a time where there's a little turmoil. So, still a lot of talent here. You've got Nathan McKinnon, Jonathan Drouin, and Martin Necas as the top line. Casey Middlestat, Juuso Parssinen, and Arturi Lehkonen as the second line. Jack Drury, Ross Colton, and Miles Wood, the third line. And the fourth line has Parker Kelly, centering Joel Kiviranta and Logan O'Connor. On defense, former Islander Devon Taves and Cale Makar make up what may be the best top pairing in the NHL right now. Samuel Girard and Josh Manson are the second pair. Keaton Middleton and Sam Malinsky are the third pair. Goaltending, which has been an issue for a lot of the years. You got the two Woods now, Mackenzie Blackwood, Scott Wedgwood. Captain Gabriel Landeskog remains on IR, as is Tucker Pullman, Miles Wood, Oliver Kylington, while Valerie Nichushkin is still day to day. It is not easy to beat the Colorado Avalanche. They are a skilled team. They are a team with more speed and skill than the New York Islanders right now. The big question is, they have underachieved. They are lacking depth. This is more of a top-heavy team, and that's one of the reasons they decided to make the trade that they did to try to get more depth up and down the lineup. Rantanen is going to be missed, and now it's just a question of how quickly this team plays well with the new players that they're dealing with and that are in this lineup, and how quickly they adjust to the system, to the coaching staff, and to their new teammates. And then obviously, what kind of an impact can they have? Islanders, here's the thing. The Islanders' improved play as of late is primarily due to better defense. And if you look at the numbers, okay, the 4-game winning streak, they've given up a grand total of 5 goals in those 4 games. 2 to Carolina, 1 each to Philly, Columbus, and San Jose. That's how the Islanders have to win. And one of the other things that come up with the injury to Marcus Hogberg and the fact that Semyon Varlamov is not ready to return yet is that they again are faced with a situation where they're going to lean heavily on Ilya Sorokin. Sorokin is going to play most of the games going forward. I don't think they'll give Jakub Skarek a start. Maybe one if there's another back-to-back and you have one on February 1st and 2nd on the road trip in Florida. So we'll see how that plays out. But they're probably hoping by then that either Varley is back or maybe they'll stick with Sorokin for both games, because clearly, again, the lack of organizational depth affects this team. We'll see what the Islanders do, but playing strong team defense is the biggest reason for this winning streak. And they've got to continue to do that. They've only scored more than 3 goals in one of those 4 games, and that was against San Jose, who has the weakest defense in the league. So can the Islanders find a way to continue to play good defense when they're missing so many defensemen, and when their backup goalie is out and their third-string goalie is out? That is going to be the crux of whether or not they can extend this winning streak and beat Colorado. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And, today would have been the 83rd birthday of former Islanders defenseman Arnie Brown, the Oshawa, Ontario native, 5'11", 185 pounds, made his NHL debut in 1963-64 with the Maple Leafs, then played for the Rangers from 64-65 all the way through to 70-71, got dealt to the Red Wings, and joined the Islanders in their expansion season of 72-73, played 48 games as an Islander, 4 goals, 12 points, 27 penalty minutes. He was a minus 48 in 48 games. Look, when your team wins 12 games all year, your plus minus isn't going to be pretty. He got dealt to the Atlanta Flames, closed out his NHL career with the Flames before playing 1 year in the WHA and hanging up his skates. He played in 681 career NHL games, 44 goals, 185 points, 738 penalty minutes, add 6 assists in 22 playoff games, none of those obviously with the Islanders. One of his best games as an Islander, how about December 21st, 1972? Islanders hosting the Canucks at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Dunk Wilson, the goalie for Vancouver. Jerry Desjardins in between the pipes for the Islanders. And at the end of, late in the first period, with the score tied at 1, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Arnie Brown sets up the captain, Ed Westfall, for a goal in the final minute. Lorne Henning gets the other assist. Islanders take a 2-1 lead. And then on the power play, midway through the second period, Our Islanders' birthday of the day. Arnie Brown sets up Tom Miller for a power play goal. Billy Harris had the assist, the other assist. That made it 3-1 Islanders, but guess what? Vancouver scores 3 unanswered goals, but midway through the third, Brian Spinner Spencer ties it. Islanders and Canucks skate to a 4-4 tie. Jerry Desjardins made 27 saves, but for Arnie Brown, our Islanders' birthday of the day, he had 2 assists and 3 shots on goal. He was a -1 in this game, but remember, one of those 2 assists came on the power play. The late Arnie Brown, who left us back in 2019 at the age of 77, he is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, we're back tomorrow. We'll have our key takeaways from tonight's game against the Avalanche. Plus, we'll obviously talk a little bit about how the Islanders' defense core looks with the new pieces in place and what kind of a debut Scott Perunovich has with the New York Islanders. We'll also have our weekly farm report on all things Bridgeport Islanders, so make sure you join us for that. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's always great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Until tomorrow, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.